This is the Chief Guard of the Republic Radio Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid. Every Saturday, noon to 1 on WRMN 1410 AM, the Fox River Valley Media Network. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Studio number here for voice is 847-931-1410. That's 847-931-1410. And our magic studio text phone for coming at you from New Mexico is 505-926-1410. So that's our text number. It may be a New Mexico number, but the phone is right here in Studio 14. You can hit us up in the comments on the Facebook Live channel, WRMN 1410's. Oh, I hit now I know why I'm making that mistake all the time, because I wrote it down in the YouTube Live channel. YouTube Live 1410 YouTube Live's channel. So we're up there right now. And I was yesterday I was uploading. Oh my God, my hat's all crooked. Good thing I could see that. You know what? I hope the glare off my head doesn't like really scare anyone. All right, so I was there checking out uploading our latest show, and I found another show on there that was interesting to me, The Torn Conquest with Elliot Serrano on 1410 here, and he does the 6 to 7 on Saturday. So what interested me is he's a commentator for sports entertainment, or like I like to call it, professional wrestling. And everyone knows my daughter, I've mentioned it a couple times and I put ads on her. My daughter actually promotes, she's a promoter, and she owns a ring and basically owns the promotion of the Ultimate Combat Gauntlet. And they have a monthly show at Magoo's over on 60, just off 65th and Menard in Bedford Park. So you could find the address just by Googling Magoo's in Bedford Park. And then you could see, if you Google Ultimate Combat Gauntlet, you could see where she has her shows. And she's got a lot of up-and-coming wrestlers. They're very good. They're very professional. They've been training with each other and wrestling right now for about 7 or 8 months. So it's a real good show. It's going to be on this Friday, the 28th of February. I know that's the end of the month, but the cool thing is, because the first of the month is on a Saturday, everyone's going to get paid on Friday. So you'll be fat with cash, and it's only $20, $10 for veterans. It's a cut down, and a price reduction also for first responders. The show is also kid friendly, and anyone under 13 is only $10, half price. So I'll be there working the door if you want to meet me in person. So Magoo's, the doors will open at 6. The wrestling show usually starts around between 7 and 8. It's a good 90 minutes. So come out to Magoo's this Friday on the 28th. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I had to get that out there. And, hey, you know what, Paul? Genius idea. Absolute genius idea to cover the museums. One of the things we need to guard our republic is a good knowledge of our history, because one of the things an intelligent person could do is spot patterns. And history can sometimes be cyclical and have a pattern to it. So if you could spot those patterns and avoid them again, you can improve everything. And you can look back at history to know when we need to really protect the republic, when things are going bad. And one of the ways we learn about history is by hitting these museums, right?
Exactly. Because if you don't remember history, you'll be doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, and some things you want to repeat, like victory. Some things you don't want to repeat, like loss and depression and, pandemics and stuff like that. You just don't want to repeat those things. So, yeah. And I was started reviewing some of the museums out here, and I'm like, this is cool. We should actually go out to these things and do a vlog, a video log, and I could post that on our YouTube page, which is Chief Guard of the Republic on YouTube. So we have our own channel there, and we've posted all of our shows, like I mentioned before. And we could start posting video logs of that in addition to this show, and then we could have more first-person material to cover on the show. It would take us out there. But as always, we are a Veterans Radio shout-out show. So if you're a veteran and you have an event that you want to bring up, give us a call, 931-1410. That's 847-931-1410. Hit us up on the YouTube live comments, all right? And or you could text us at the 505-926-1410. And then I'll put it out there. But this isn't a free lunch. It isn't a free lunch. You know, if you tell me here that I want it done, no, you got to call in. You got to hit us up in the comments, because that way I know at least you're listening and everything. But we have a worldwide reach out here, all the way to Australia, and I've noticed that the signal, the actual AM signal, comes in pretty good down in Oak Lawn. Have you tuned it in, Paul?
No, I haven't. Because I don't want any feedback, but I'll have to try it.
Oh no, when you're driving around in your car, they got some good shows. You know, I've been listening to the Talking Heads on the radio, and normally I listen to Psycho Radio, and that's not a hit on anyone, or maybe it might be. All right, the ultra right wing conservative shows. All right, and they have been annoying me. Some of these people, I catch them in a lot of stuff where they say one thing and then they say another. A real big guy up there had mentioned that the country of the nation of the Ukraine had existed for 1,000 years, and I'm like, no. Like, and this is a well-known guy, right? And I'm like, and he's out there. I'm like, no, it existed for 7 years back in the 17th century. Existed for 7 years, then it disappeared off the face of the map until 1992. All right, so, and I'm not talking about Kiev and Rus, which is different than, it's the same area, but it's, you know, Rus. All right, so Paul, the first museum I found, and the one that has the biggest impact on me from when I was a kid, was the First Division Museum at Kentigny. Have you been out there?
That is correct. That's I was there once with the Cub Scouts, and then I've been there several times during the pandemic. It's kind of fantastic. It was really the home of Colonel McCormick,
yes,
the guy that owned the Tribune. And when we were there, they have a mansion too that's open at certain times. We didn't get to tour that, but they have fantastic gardens, kind of like Gardens of Versailles. And then they have the military museum. They've got a tank park, and it's really cool. I've got some photos of me, and it's like I'm turning the gun on the turret, and there's a World War I tank there that it looks like the size of a VW Bug, but that was it was a Renault tank. So that's a fantastic place, and the museum inside is simply fantastic. They have, it was from the unit that he commanded. I believe it was the 1st Division, if I'm not mistaken, and or the Big Red One, I think it was. And it goes from the initial start in World War I up until current times, and it's just a fantastic place. And all you have to do to get in is pay to park your car. So it's free. There's a gift shop there. There's a place you can eat. And like I said, the gardens are fantastic. I mean, they have, I never saw one before. They have something called a smoke tree, and it's kind of blurry and it changes colors with the season, and there's fountains. It's just a wonderful place to go on a nature walk or to view history, and it's simply fantastic.
What's their policy on crawling on the tanks now?
You can get on the tanks, but they tell you to be careful, and there might be a limitation. They don't want you to fall and get hurt, because then there's liability. But there's all kinds of tanks there. There's all the American. There's a Sheridan tank there. There's the M48, the M60. There's, like I said, that Renault from World War I. And then there's other kind of equipment there. It's just fantastic. And there's I think it's I don't know if it's a Hotchkiss or a Krupp's gun right when you walk inside, and it's like from World War I, and it's mounted in the middle. And I noted too, they have a display there. They promote STEM stuff for kids. Like they have a model rocketry program that people go to, and it's just a really unique learning experience, and it's something that everybody should take advantage of because it's really so close. And then there's other stuff in the area too. If you don't want, you can go to the Morton Arboretum is not too far from there. And then there's some wonderful stuff in Wheaton and things like that. So, it's just a very wonderful close by experience. And it's made to be interactive. And, they have films, and then you walk through exhibits. You get to see what trench life was like in World War I. And then they have an area where you walk through it and it looks like you're in Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge with the tanks there. There's a Sherman tank. And then, you get to see the wintry scene, and it really puts it in perspective of what our, fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers did. So I think it's a real important place and a very interesting place to go to.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a treat when I went out there. We'd go visit my cousins that lived in Wheaton. And every once in a while, it was summer and good weather, my parents would bring us out there. And there were a couple tanks there where the exit, the emergency exits in the bottom had been removed, and you could actually crawl and get into these things. So that was pretty cool as kids. Yeah, no, it was always wonderful. And walking through the trench, the World War I trench, that's impressive. And, I wasn't very interested in the mansion and everything or the gardens when I was a kid, but now by far I will be highly interested. We should make that definitely one of our stops, like in May when the flowers are starting to bloom, a good day. We could make it a point to go out there. We'll need a camera person.
I highly recommend a restaurant not too far from there called The Verdict, because when I used to practice law and go to DuPage County, there's a wonderful restaurant not too far from there, right near the courthouse complex. So if you ever go out that way for lunch, The Verdict restaurant is a really great place to go to. They have fantastic lunches and omelets, and it's a fantastic place.
Oh, look, we're giving a lot of plugs here. So listen, if you're listening to us and you have a business and you like our show and everything, even if you don't like our show, you could support us and you could become one of our sponsors. And we'll give you plugs on the air, possibly get you some nice radio commercials. Because like I said, right now, 1410 has probably got about at least a 15-mile radius of their radio broadcast on a bad day, maybe 20, 25 miles on a good day.
If you're talking Oak Lawn, you're probably closer to 40 miles. So, there's a lot of stuff that we can help you with your advertising with.
Yep. So you could contact us on Chief Guard of the Republic at gmail.com. If you hit our webpage, cgr.psylink.net, you can find all of our contact information there, and there's a contact page. And if you're following along on these, we're going to put it up there. If you're following along on the Intel link, all right, the Intel tab there, click on that. I have listed all the museums that we're going to try to cover today on there with they have what they call hyperlinks to their web pages. All right, so
hey, I'd like to give a little shout out for a second, if we could,
sure,
to two of our loyal friends. One of them is my buddy Marty.
Hey, Marty.
And one of them is our real loyal listener. She comments all the time. She's afraid to call, but she's a wonderful person, Maggie. So Maggie and Marty out there, we appreciate your feedback, and we love you for what you're doing, and we really appreciate your listening to us.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm sure, another one of our, unless he's on a cruise, he may still be Larry. Larry, he calls
too.
in, but, he'll be a good guy to bring along with us, because if there's anyone that knows anything about history, it's Larry. All right,
Larry is a wonderful guy. And if you're back from your cruise, we hope you enjoyed it. If you're on your cruise, keep enjoying it.
So the next one I got on my list here is the National Veterans Art Museum. That used to be downtown on 18th Street over by the Donnelly building. And I know because I used to go to National Guard drills there. And you walk by and it was the Vietnam Veterans Art Museum. And they moved like everything over to 4041 North Milwaukee. So they have a building over there. I haven't been to that yet. It hadn't opened up the last time I was by there. But I plan to go and check out the artwork there that is made by the Vietnam veterans.
That's a wonderful place to go to.
I was wondering if they still had the dog tags, the 57,000 dog tags.
I remember that. They had them hanging from a mobile from the ceiling. That was fantastic.
Yeah. And, okay, so haven't been there. We'll make maybe on a bad weather day because it's inside, we'll make a point to go there. There's a lot of nice little restaurants in that area too. That's, what is it, Jackson Park?
Yeah.
Over there. So it's in Chicago, like I said, 4041 North Milwaukee, and it's nvam.org is their webpage. And hey, anyone out there that has a museum, even if we're going to talk about it in the future, or we've already talked about it, if you want to give a call in and give us your opinion on that, that's great. If you have a museum that we ain't listed, call in. If you have a place that has significance, especially military significance or veteran significance, call us in. Give us that information. We'll give a shout out to it. All right, the next thing, I don't know what the RTC stands for, but the RTC Museum, and that is at Great Lakes. I think it's actually on the base, and you'll have to look for it at bootcamp.navy.mil. So bootcamp.navy.mil. So that is one of Great Lakes museums. I think this one is actually off base. All right, so you don't have to pass through the gate, which means when you want to pass through the gate, you have to either be active military or retired military or disabled veteran with the ID card, and they'll let you through the gate. If not, you got to stop at the main gate by the building, and you got to park there and get a visitor's pass. Now you were just talking about this one, Paul, last week, the Glenview Hangar One Foundation.
Yeah, we went up to Glenview, and it's really sad. The base is gone, and there's the museum you're talking about, and then you could see the control tower, and then of all things, I encourage you to go in there. Right next to the right of the control tower is a Van Mauer store, and I really don't plug too many commercial places, but there's a Stearman, I believe it's a P-17 Stearman, hanging in the center of the store, and it's like the type that was used there in the 30s, and it's simply fantastic. And they have an area with a real piano player, and they have like couches and chairs where you could sit under the plane and admire it. And it's really, for a commercial establishment to do that, it's kind of fantastic, because it's one of the few places that's memorializing the history of the area, and the plane is fantastic in there. So it's in Van Mauer, and they have a parking garage in the back. I believe the parking in front is for 30 minutes, but it's just a fantastic place to go and teach your family about some local history in the area. And remember that President Bush flew out of there to go to one of the carriers, the Sable, during the war. So, and remember this, a third of the Navy aviators flew out of that area during World War II. So you're talking about a lot of people that were in our area during the war, and the important part Chicago area played in World War II. So, it's something to honor that, and and go forward.
Yeah, that Stearman aircraft, I actually saw one. A guy owned it, and he was flying, and it was one of the forest preserve. I forget exactly where, but they had a landing strip cleared out in one of these forest preserves. It was just a grass field, and he was doing touch and goes, and then landing and taking off. And he had the biplane. I got to walk up to it because, it was one of the premier trainer. The first trainer that these guys flew when they started training to be pilots was this aircraft. There were a lot of them made. They're very sturdy. They're forgivable. They were very maneuverable, easy to land. Biplanes. Yeah, I got to go take a closer look at that. Because they are. I'll tell you what. I would love to own one. They are beautiful aircraft. It's like the Jeep of the aircraft world there.
And it's, I believe it's aluminum tubing over fabric, and some of the control surfaces might be aluminum too, but it's yellow with some red highlights, and it's got the piston engine on there, and it's just
the radial engine.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, like you said, just the. I would love to be a passenger in one.
It's a 2-seater.
I know, so because it's a trainer.
Maybe we could get him to crank it down, and we could take a little ride in it.
Maybe we could steal it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll still. I bet you with a couple whiffs of ether, it'll still turn over.
I bet you're right. Oh, they also have an example of the Norden bomb sight in a case. And the first time I ever saw that was when a B-29 came into Midway, and they let people tour it, and you could go up on a ladder and look at it, and they have the bomb sight in a case. It's really cool.
Yeah, that bomb sight, they took it out of the B-25 Mitchells that were used to bomb Tokyo.
Right.
They had them, and they said, no, we're taking these out because they didn't want them to fall into enemy hands.
Right.
So that was one of the things. If the plane was going down, they were ordered to destroy this bomb site. That was the main, one of the main things they wanted destroyed because it was such a well-made site.
Yeah, that was like our Enigma machine. It was like really precision, Yeah,
so Glenview isn't that far away, and it's no longer a military base, so you could just drive in there whenever. You don't need a pass or anything. Yeah, I got to go. It's not too far from me. I'm up on the north side there.
Yeah.
The other one I found there is, I want to get down. This one's further on the south side, and I don't know when it's open, but I got the webpage. It's the Veterans Garage, so veteransgarage.com, and that's over in 14828 McKinley Avenue in Posen. And that just looked awesome because they had all sorts of vehicles there, Hummers, Jeeps. And we're coming up on the break. When we get back, we're going to be talking about more museums. So this is Chief Bart, Guard of the Republic. See you in a few minutes after these fine messages from our sponsors. Family friendly, bring the kids, as long as, you got shackles for their legs so they're not running around, bouncing into the doors and tripping over people's feet. Bring a nice lawn chair, and we'll let you set it up. You'll be much more comfortable in your own personal chair. So that's March 15th. All right, at doors open at 6. We'll start showing the movie at 7. All right, and that's how it's done. Oh yeah, Post 104. When are your meetings? Oh, they're the first Monday of the month, unless the Monday is a federal holiday. Then it's the second Monday of the month, and the meetings start at 6 o'clock. We had to start them earlier because a lot of our members are older and they don't like driving at night. So yeah, our webpage, which is really hard to remember, post104.org. And it's out there, and all the information's up there. So yeah, that's how it's done. Anyone else that wants to call in can do it too. At the radio show. All right, Paul, you got any?
I do.
Okay.
My favorite, other than going to the U505, which is at the Field Museum. I mean, the Museum of Science and Industry. Yeah. But my favorite all-time museum is the Rock Island Arsenal Museum, and that's in Rock Island, Illinois. And this is fantastic. It's on a military base. It's real cool. You drive onto the island, and there's a golf course there, and then there's housing, and then they have like a tank park, and they have, you know, they used to make small arms during World War I and a little bit later on, but and rifles, and then they made the Craig rifle there and some other things. And it's one of the most fantastic museums, and it's a government museum, you know. And outside of the Springfield Armory Museum in Massachusetts, it's got every single firearm that was ever made or used by the United States military from the Revolutionary War on. It's just a fantastic museum. And I've been there several times. And it's just wonderful. And there's a Confederate cemetery there also. And what's really unique, coming on Memorial Day now, they put flags out, and that's the only time you'll ever see Confederate flags, because they put them by the graves of the dead Confederate soldiers. It's very unusual, you know. And that you could tour the base, you could see the base commander's house and everything, and it's just a fantastic place. It's like 2-3 hours away, depending on where you live, and there's some great stuff across the river. And why I bring it up too is, across the river
in Iowa,
in Iowa, in LeClaire, Iowa, is the Buffalo Bill Museum. And it's kind of a small place, but it's on 199 Front Street in LeClaire, Iowa. And it's like right across the river from the Rock Island Arsenal. I've been to both of these places several times, and they're fantastic. I mean, they're literally fantastic places, and they're close by, and they're wonderful. Now, in keeping with that, I'm a big Abe Lincoln fan. I mean, a big Abe Lincoln fan. And there's a place down in Mount Pulaski, Illinois. So it's not too far from Springfield, but it's called the Mount Pulaski Courthouse Museum. And why I like it is it's one of the only places left that Lincoln practiced law. And they have one of his suits in there behind a glass. And I did not know this. You know, back in those days, you had two linen suits, one black for winter and one white for summer. And it's just a fantastic look into Lincoln history. And they have, when I went there years ago, there was a woman there running it, and she was just wonderful in spending her time telling you about Lincoln. And I learned a lot of things because, you know, Lincoln was in the Black Hawk War. And that's where he was voted as a
captain in the Illinois militia.
Right. And he was voted as the leader of his group. And the reason why Lincoln was so good in that war is he was also, he rode the circuit, meaning he either rode or walked from county to county. So he knew where all the land but he was also a surveyor. And he proved vital to his group and the troops, because he knew what was beyond the next hill, or he knew what was further on down. And it was because of his experience riding the circuit between courthouses and towns. And a lot of people don't know that about Lincoln, but he walked throughout the whole state, and he'd been all over. He was in Chicago. He was in Joliet. He did the debates later on. And you know, almost everywhere you go, there's some historical Lincoln aspect to it. And he was a very important president. And that's and it's a fantastic place to go to and see how things were done 150, 200 years ago. I mean, just wonderful.
Do you have your stovepipe hat?
No, I don't.
We're going to have to get you one. We're definitely going to have to get you one.
You know, I got to tell you, in Worth, they used to have something called the Civil War Days at the Depot, okay? And there's an area by the Metro tracks over there, or the Norfolk and Southern tracks, where the Metro trains go. That's kind of a clearing. And I didn't take a vacation one year, but I did go to that. And that was one of the best vacations I ever had. And it's like a few miles from my house because they had a reenactment. But all the time I was there walking around, everybody said, the president's coming. The president's coming. I'm thinking, George Bush is coming? No, it was Lincoln. It was a Lincoln impersonator.
Oh, I've met him. He's always down in Springfield there.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and I got to see a real battle because they had the cavalry and the cannon and the horses, and it was just to see it. But sadly, they don't do that anymore. But I remember I picked up some leather goods for some cap and ball pistols, like a holster and a cap box and some other things. And it was just a wonderful experience to see. And it was brought to my own neighborhood. So they used to call it Civil War Days at the Depot, and it was fantastic. But, those are the kind of things that are interesting.
My dad took my kids there, and I got a picture of Jerry, my son, my clone, basically, and I guess they had outfits and stuff, and they let him dress up in one of the Civil War outfits and handed him a musket there, and he was so excited. He loved it a lot. I've got an associate. Well, he was a detective with us in the police department, and he had his degree in history, a doctorate's degree in history, and he used to teach at the city colleges. And he retired and moved down south into Missouri. And for a while he was working as a police officer down there, but he also was a curator of one of the museums down there. So he worked as a curator, and then he did a lot of reenactment stuff. So he probably got, all sorts of uniforms and everything. But he has another Facebook page under an assumed name, right? And he's wearing a top hat, and he looks really good in it. He really makes that top hat work. So we got to get you one, Paul.
Okay.
And then we'll get you a beard too, and you could pass for the president. You're tall enough.
Okay.
Maybe not lanky enough, but but yeah.
I've got an entire book of his speeches, so we're all set.
Oh, we're good. We're good. And so on the way down to Springfield there, and down to see the what was the name of the museum again? The
Mount Pulaski Museum?
Yeah, I wrote it down here. Mount Pulaski Museum. So I'll find a hookup for that, and I'll put it on our webpage there in the Intel section. And on the way down there, you could stop off at the Lexington County, I think Livingston County War Museum. They used to call it the Pontiac War Museum. All right. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much run by volunteers, and they have collections of stuff that a lot of National Guard guys and reserves and guys that got out of the military just donated in there. And so if you're on your way down,
it's 321 North Main Street, by the way, in Pontiac.
Yes, and it's right off I-55. I mean, you get off I-55 and a couple, like 2 miles down, there's an exit there, and you go in there, and it's free access. They ask for donations, but it's worth it if you've been driving for a while, because it's about a little less than 3 hours down I-55. And, you might be tired. You might need to stretch your legs. That's a good place to stretch your legs. Maybe throw a 5-spot or a 10-spot in their donation box and see some actual uniforms that were worn by actual heroes, and all the stuff there's a lot of little stuff there that you wouldn't see anywhere else, just collections. So I highly recommend that. But the best, the cream of the crop, the Coupe de Ville, one of the things that the Illinois National Guard has done extremely right, and I don't know how that accidentally happened, but it happened. Go to the Illinois War Museum on Camp McGovern. Not Camp McGovern, Camp Lincoln. I'm sorry. It's on McGovern Avenue. That's why I called Camp McGovern. Camp McGovern was where I was stationed in Bosnia. But it's on McGovern Avenue. It's called Camp Lincoln. And it's actually off Camp Lincoln, so you don't have to go through the gate. There's a side gate to get to the museum there. And they put up the museum in the old stockade. It used to be in one of their old little wooden buildings that they had there that they tore down. But they had the old stockade there, and they refurbished it. So it looks like a prison, right? Which it was, right? And they refurbished it and made it a military museum. There's vehicles parked outside, like most of these military places. But inside, we got Santa Anna's legs, or one of them. We got one of them. So we got one of Santa Anna's legs, and the story behind that was during the Mexican-American War. Yeah, the Mexican-American War. The Illinois,
1848.
Yeah, the Illinois militia, I believe the 20th Regiment of the Illinois Militia was down there. And as they were moving, they had surprised Santa Anna while he was getting ready to eat his dinner, and he had taken his leg off. So he's sitting down at dinner, and here come all these Illinois infantry guys, and he just jumps on hops on his horse because he's only got one leg, right? Gets on his horse, and he gets away, leaving his dinner behind and his leg. So that's on display there. It's one of the war trophies of the Illinois militia. And
that's at 1301 North MacArthur Boulevard.
MacArthur Boulevard. I'm sorry. I thought McGovern, MacArthur. Yeah, MacArthur Boulevard.
That's really interesting, though, because, Grant, and he became famous for his activity during the Mexican-American War.
Field artillery.
And he was considered to be, they called him a horse whisperer, because when he was a child, he was almost killed by a trotting horse, and he jumped between its legs, and the horse jumped over him. And he actually, without a saddle or anything, jumped on a horse and held onto it by the neck and rode to the other end. And he's kind of famous for that. That's one of the legends of the Mexican-American War in 1848.
See, Grant, much like Napoleon, was a field artillery expert. So he knew how to use field artillery. And so did Napoleon. Some of these great generals, didn't really come out of the infantry. It came out of the cavalry. But yeah, so Grant and so now we're going to go full circle on this. One of the museums that's gone, and I'm sorry to hear this. This is why we need to go out and do some video documentation, because you never know when these museums are just going to go up in smoke, And one of them is the Camp Grant Museum, which used to be up near Rockford, but now it's closed, all right? And people don't know about Camp Grant, all right? So during World War I, when they had the big push, everyone was enlisting, and of course you're going to have most enlistees around major cities, Chicago being one of them. And they would send them off to be inducted and trained in the military before they went overseas. Camp Grant was one of those places. It was basic training during World War I. It was also basic training during World War II. All right. And when they put up the buildings there, I remember stories from my great uncle Tony, who was drafted at the age of 42 years old, or 44. He was 44, born in 1898. They drafted him in 1942. He was 44 years old, and they sent him up to Camp Grant. And nowadays you got, contractors and everything, and military guys that aren't allowed to hold a hammer or a drill. You got to put in a piece of paperwork and wait 6 months for the the civilian contractors to come by and fix whatever. But back then, they dumped all the lumber, all the cement, everything they needed, pipes and everything. And they told the GIs, we got these buildings, you put them up or you continue to sleep in tents. And of course, a lot of the guys that were getting drafted, like my Uncle Tony, were carpenters, bricklayers, masons. They were getting drafted, but they had skills. So they put these buildings up in a matter of days. In a matter of days, what would take the government now weeks, months, years to get up, these guys put them up in days, and they were still standing. They're still standing. They had the designate, all the buildings on a base have numbers, right? And if the number had a letter prefix of a T, that meant that was a temporary building, all right? In 1941. Temporary buildings, so only designed to last 5 years. So by 46, they're supposed to all be torn down. Well, back in the 2000s, I was still going up to Fort McCoy and sleeping in buildings with a T designation on it that were built in World War II. All right, so they had a museum dedicated to that, and it closed down. I guess not due to lack of interest or whatever, but people didn't know about it. However, what's still available, and I got to give a plug here to my buddy Greg Jacobs, he's big in the American Legion and the VFW. He's and the VVA, the Vietnam Veterans Association. So he's he was drafted into Vietnam to the Navy, but he's real big with the veterans organizations. And one of the things he did is he researched Camp Grant, and I wrote down my notes here again. All right, so he researched Camp Grant, and he wrote a book. So it's available. It's called Camp Grant, and it is available on Amazon along with my books. Check out Michael F. Tooman. So if you go to Amazon looking for novels to read, okay, I write Pulp Fiction. Greg did research on what we call nonfiction book about Camp Grant. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff in the museum is covered in there. So it's Camp Grant by Greg or Gregory Jacobs. I think the public on the cover, it's Greg Jacobs, Gregg Jacobs. It's available on Amazon and from Arcadia Publishing. So, yeah, there it is. There it is. I'll tell you what, Matt is the greatest producer on the face of the earth.
Oh,
man.
Goodness. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you want to read about the history there, Camp Grant, it's available out there. So in order to give another plug, now I heard through rumors that they were moving the Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum. And the Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum was located, it might still be located, it's over in River Grove, and they don't have a web page yet. I know he was working on it, but it's over in River Grove, and at it used to be the American Legion Hall or the VFW Hall there, but the River Grove city took it over. So they do let the VFW and the American Legion meet there. So Chicagoland Combined Veterans Library and Combined Veterans Museum Library and Honor Wall. It's at 8604 West Grand and River Grove. Yeah, now you see your Facebook page because they only have limited hours. All right, but if you're there, it is. All right, and I heard that Lorenzo Florentino, he's another high-powered veteran. Like, the guy's got a lot of energy for veterans organizations, veterans events, and everything. Really hard-charging guy, and he's the driving force behind this. All right, so I heard that he found another place that he's going to rent that's bigger. All right, so he has a lot of stuff that he can't display because everyone's donating stuff. I donated some World War II phrase books, one in Russian and one in Italian. All right, so those were little phrase books that they used to give out to the GIs going over there. All right, so that would be a good one to visit and everything. So I'm giving them a plug there, even though they didn't call in. I wish they would, but because They're good guys, and I personally know them. I'll give them the plug there. So, yeah, so we went all the way down to Springfield there to go see the. We went past Springfield to see Abraham Lincoln to the courthouse there. Come back up Springfield into Livingston County, and now there's another one on the south side there. If you're going down 55, you could stop at, and it's called the Illinois Aviation Museum. Now, that's not specifically military, but they have some military aircraft there to show off. So it's actually in the airport, the Bolingbrook International Airport. So they must fly at least one flight to Canada to be considered international. But it's actually inside the airport. So 110 CLOW International Parkway, Bolingbrook, Illinois. They have a webpage, IllinoisAviationMuseum.org. So all one word, IllinoisAviationMuseum.org. So if you're into airplanes and stuff, that's a good place to stop on your little trip down I-55.
There's also the Illinois Air Combat Museum at 835 South Airport Drive in Springfield. That's another aviation museum. And then also on the way down to Springfield is the Heritage and Flight Museum at 1351 Airport Drive in Logan County Airport in Lincoln, Illinois. So there's a couple of airport museums around the Springfield area.
Yeah. So we're coming up on another hard break here. Time's just flying. We got another hour because they gave us another hour taking over for the guy, the political talk show after us, but he couldn't make it this week, so we're taking over for him. Action-packed, exciting pulp fiction. Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring the international crime thriller I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa Sierra Yankee Lima India November Kilo November Echo Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
This hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. The Hamas terrorist group has released its last 6 living.
Shortly thereafter, they closed it. I'm like,
oh, bummer.
Well, where'd all this stuff go? And I did some research, and supposedly the government doesn't just throw that all out. They take it and they store it. They what do you call it? They catalog it and they store it, and maybe it moves over to other museums. So some of this stuff was like a leather bound like infantry manual from World War I that I had donated there, and a World War I uniform, still intact, full uniform, without the helmet or the hat, but it was pretty intact with the brass, not brass, but it was
Bronze
buttons there. So I was looking up, and they do have a Fort Sheridan Historical Society. So, and they have events. I don't think they have a building or a office where they display anything, but they do have Fort Sheridan events out there. So you could find it at the FS Historical, so Fort Sheridan for short, FShistorical.org. wixsite.com. So WIXSITE.com. And they do have some nice events out there, you know, putting out a flag on the like March 3rd is going to be their 138th anniversary for Fort Sheridan. And one of the right now that building is still there, but it's a community center for the kids to do artwork and stuff, because that is a real, you need some deep pockets to live there now. My buddy was luckily enough, he got a townhome over there, and it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. You know, he keeps a Irish leprechaun locked in the basement whenever he needs a wish granted, and it just happens for him. He's a good guy, and he's got a beautiful place up there that he truly deserves. And the people up there, they took these old turn of the century military buildings, and they just converted it to wonderful things. So that used to be the stables, you know, for Fort Sheridan, and they converted them to townhomes. And a lot of the warehouses there were converted to townhomes and condominiums. And probably the best houses there were the NCO houses, where the non-commissioned officers had lived, because anything below the rank of colonel was living in a double wide down by the lake. And they tore those all up, and those were on the south side of the fort, and they tore them all up, and they put in newer housing built by contractors for active duty military from Great Lakes and from the Army Reserve units in the area and recruiters. So they all have housing there. But the older buildings, now the general buildings are all off the lakefront, and those got to be multi-million-dollar homes. But they are beautiful, and it's an open base there. It's just the neighborhood. It looks like it's gated, but you could just drive right in. The golf course was a point of contention when they closed that base. And you had Lake Forest. I keep forgetting these names. I should remember them all. Lake Forest, and there was I just got I having a mind blank on this stuff.
Waukegan, Winnetka.
Yeah, well, Waukegan's but just east, just west of Fort Sheridan.
Deerfield?
Wait, I'll pull it up. Or Matt will pull it up for me. He's good at this stuff.
So which one is this again?
Fort Sheridan. And it'll get, as soon as I see it, it'll jump in my head.
Let me see. What you're looking for is... You're looking for the town. Are you looking for
the town?
Deerfield, Highland Park, Riverwood?
Highland Park. There's Highwood. All right, so there's Highland Park to the south. All right, now it all jumps into my brain. Now, you know, I got kick-started the brain. You know, the 2-gauge jumper cables with the 110 amp alternators jump-starting my brain here. Right, so you got Highland Park to the south, you got Lake Forest to the north, and then you have Highwood. And Highwood, when Fort Sheridan was actually open, a full-fledged active duty fort, which was the headquarters to the 5th Army and the headquarters to Recruiting Command, amongst other things that were there. There was a bomb squad there, some other stuff. Highwood was kind of a run-down neighborhood, as most neighborhoods that border military bases are. They don't seem like the best, right? But when Fort Sheridan closed, Highwood started getting a little more affluent. And everyone wanted that golf course. There's a lot of golf courses up there. Lake Forest, Highwood, Highland Park have golf courses, but Fort Sheridan had its own golf course, and it became a point of contention that who was going to run that golf course. And one of the things they said was at the BRAC, because that was what the reservists and the active duty were screaming about, because we got to use a world-class golf course for a lot less than you would use a public county golf course, like the Forest Preserve golf courses. It would cost a lot less, and it was a nice golf course. And it was because we're military, right? It's one of our little benefits. And they said, oh, you'll still be able to use it for the same price. Well, that didn't work out because they just shut down the whole golf course. They just said they couldn't decide who to give it to. But the drill field that was left was actually part of the golf course. And the big open field there actually belongs to the Lake Forest Preserve now. So it doesn't belong to the Village of Fort Sheridan. It doesn't belong to Highwood. It doesn't belong to Highland Park. It doesn't belong to Lake Forest. It belongs to the Lake County Forest Preserve, which I knew because I had to reserve that whole area for a change of command ceremony. So where am I getting on that? Oh, so hopefully everything that I donated to the Fort Sheridan Museum is still in government custody and being well taken care of. And my kids would have trashed it. They would have found it and trashed it. So let's see. I think my buddy Jeff sent me he was probably there when he was probably in the movie theater with me when we all stood up and said backblast area all clear at the Rambo movie, because he went through the same language school that I did. And Jeff says, oh, he says the Civil War Museum in Kenosha concentrating on the Midwest contributions to the Civil War. So yeah, I thought I wrote that down.
Yeah, that's at 5400 First Avenue in Kenosha. And that's not too far from the border, actually. That's a really nice place, too. I have not been there, but it's a really good place.
Yeah, we'll have to go up there, too.
And in keeping with that, given some friendship to our neighbors to the north, the Wisconsin Maritime Museum at 75 Maritime Drive in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, is an interesting place. So I believe they might even have a submarine there from World War II, and that's open Thursday through Monday.
Now, is that way up north?
I don't think Manitowoc is that far north.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Zoom. It's pretty far north.
Then I know.
It's less than a day's drive.
Yeah.
Just north of Milwaukee. Yeah, no, it ain't that far. It's like half. Get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, start to drive up there. You'd be there by the time they open, and then spend a couple hours and drive back.
Yeah.
Have a nice lunch and drive back. So we got a lot of museums still in the Midwest that have a lot to do with the military and the history.
Don't forget the Galena and Joe Davies County area, because you got Grant's house there, and you got some nice museums in that area, and there's some beautiful parks over there where you can go up to bluffs and see for 4 states, actually. You could see Illinois, Wisconsin, you could see Minnesota, and then you could see Iowa. Yeah. So there's some really nice things up that way. And you got Grant's house, which I believe, I don't think Grant ever lived in that house. It was given to him, but then he went on to be the president. So he never really used the house, from what I understand.
He may have, because I thought he retired back to Illinois after he wasn't president anymore.
I think it was Ohio. He went to Ohio.
Okay.
Then. But I could be wrong. But Grant's house is really neat. I took a tour of that many years ago, and we were there a couple of years ago. But it's really the sidewalks are really steep. So that's that. But that whole Galena area is really nice. So there's some really nice sights to see over there too.
Yep. And I'm motivated now, Paul.
Mhm.
I'm motivated to see this stuff at least once a week to make a trip, to see the state where I where I lived my entire life, paid taxes and everything, and to see the area around here, the Midwest. I've seen
Yeah.
seen a lot of the United States via the military, some of the world via the military, but we got a lot of stuff right here too.
Yeah.
No.
And even in Indiana, there's going south toward Terre Haute. There's the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum.
Oh, that'd be a great one to see. I love Ernie
in Dana,
Pyle.
Indiana, and I can actually attest to this. I've been to the Vigo County Veterans Memorial. It's outside of the courthouse, and it's pretty cool over there. And that whole area around Terre Haute is interesting because they have covered bridges. In fact, in October, they have a covered bridge festival and Bridgeton Mill. I mean, if you've ever been to see a historic place, I actually had it on my other phone as the page when you went on the phone. There's a beautiful mill and there's a dam, and that's the Bridgeton Mill. That whole area is beautiful. It's reminiscent of America and its
Americana,
finest. Yeah. So that mill is fantastic, and that covered bridge has been burned down by prankers several times, and they've rebuilt it. But that mill is beautiful, and so you really. I think there's three covered bridges. Man, that picture.
I think
That's beautiful. The
use of the word prankster.
A working mill.
The use of the word prankster for someone that destroys a landmark or a beautiful place or a historical place, the use of the word prankster, I think, is grossly understated. I think the word terrorist more applies. I don't care if the kid's like 16 and drunk and he sets fire to something like that, no, dude, you're a terrorist. All right? We're going to try you as an adult. You can spend the rest of your life in a federal prison because your parents should have raised you better.
Right.
You destroy public works, that the public pays for, right? That's everyone's property. All right? That's not the government. Here's the thing. We might not be a communist party, right? A communist country where supposedly the state owns everything, and because you're the state, you actually own that too, where it doesn't work out that way, right? But we're taxpayers, all right? The government is the custodian of our property. That's it. They're the custodians of it. That is our property. And when someone destroys it, you're destroying everyone else's property. You're costing everyone else money when you steal something from a museum, or you destroy something in a museum. Like these people out there, works of art, and they're throwing tomato soup on them. I'm like, oh, you have strong opinions. Oh, very good. Everyone should be proud of you because of your strong opinions and your way to stand. No, you're a simpleton. Self-centered simpleton who cares more about your own, how people, the attention that you receive rather than the beauty that you're destroying. Oh, great. Let's put a caller on.
Hi there, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi. It's Cleveland Dennis. I'm listening to the show at the extra hour. Just fascinating to me. Love the word simpleton because I actually like it. I'm not. There's no tirade involved here, but as taxpayers, it's so true. The custodians, they should do a better job in general. But you mentioned wooden bridges. I used to swim at one back in the late '60s, early '70s, off of 528 or 534 off of I-90 on the far eastern reaches of Cleveland. But I know around here there's one or two, and then wherever they are, Terre Haute or whatever you're talking about. But those are super cool bridges. And going to the museums. I always try to go to a museum anytime I can. Going to be heading up to Cantigny, whatever you're talking about over in Wheaton. I used to be a resident of Carroll Stream when I first came to Chicagoland area, and been to the Lithuanian Museum, Rock and Roll Museum over in Cleveland, and any other one. None of the major museums that I can remember downtown, but I've been to them. But these smaller regional or just local museums are unbelievably great, particularly if you like history, his story. It's really all I got. Any questions, ask. Otherwise, I'm done for today. But
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
It's great to have a loyal listener.
Dennis,
Yeah,
that Wright-Patterson Air Force Museum is fantastic.
In Dayton?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't been down that way. People south of Cleveland got a southern drawl, and yeah, just making a funny comment. Sorry, but
Yeah.
no, I haven't been there. You know, when I had opportunities to visit historical or related places, I always made the effort. You know, Windsor Castle in England. How about that? Anyhow, I know you're talking about. Or the Beatles Museum. I was at the Beatles Museum, too. That was a knockout. Anyhow,
Nice.
I'm just saying I really appreciate your program because it's fascinating the way you have the topics that you talk about and so forth. You know, you could potentially be the jewel here. But, again, that's all I got.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks,
Dennis.
I feel about 6 inches taller already. Thanks, Dennis.
Well, no,
I'm not joking. It's nice.
I know you know you're to be appreciated because when I start listening, I can't stop listening because it's a fascinating discussion or statements that you're making. And where else could you hear this but on WRMN, right?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
One of the stories I want to get before we hit the end of our show here is my son, when he was 7 years old, he had like a toy radio or something. It didn't really work, but it looked kind of futuristic thing. And I took 3 minutes, so I got enough time to tell a story. So he really wanted to go to the museum, the Natural History Museum, all right? Which, you know, I loved the Museum of Science and Industry. I was more interested in that. Natural history, it was kind of like boring to me. But he really wanted to go, so I took him down there. And he had this thing, and he pretended it was a time machine. And every time we went into a new hall or a new room, it was like we were traveling in time. And he would get into character on that. And, I had such a blast that day. You know, what's coming next? How is he going to react next? And he was kind of learning in that stuff. And I says, this is how you can make stuff like go back in time. And I can understand how reenactors, how it's so, how they really get into it, how it's enamorous and everything, how that hobby with them, it keeps you going. I love it. And the museums are part of that. Learning and everything. These people donate to the museums and they keep museums going and they talk about them and people want to learn that stuff and people want to learn the history. So I think we should keep it going. And in the future, Paul, once a week, let's, if the weather permits and our time schedules permit, let's hit one of these places. Let's talk to their directors and their curators and see if they want to be interviewed on our show. And put a big push in for the museums.
If I could chirp in, I'm listening, and thank you for the opportunity. I actually went to a reenactment of Civil War at Cantigny or whatever.
Yep.
And it sparked my further interest. And this goes back probably 20 years from now or in the past. And it sparked my interest about the Civil War. And I zero in because I read The Red Badge of Courage. I watched the movie and the Civil War, and I listened to Southern stations. Really think I'm going to be heading to the country History of Country Music Museum in Bristol, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia. But the history and what we have in this country, just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yes,
for
it is.
people that are interested. Okay, I'll hang up and listen, but thank you
All right.
again.
Bye, Dennis. Thanks again.
Bye, Dennis.
All right, Paul, I guess we're getting into a hard break here. So
All right.
we'll see
Have
you
a
all
good
next week. Same time, same station, probably only 1 hour again, but WRMN 1410 AM. This is the Chief Guard of the Republic Radio Veterans Shoutout Show, noon to 1 every Saturday.
Take care. Have a good week.
Thanks, Paul.
Are you ready to take your brand to the next level? Image 360 South Elgin is your ultimate destination for custom signs and visual communication solutions. Looking to rebrand your office interior? Need striking vehicle wraps or decals for your fleet? Or perhaps you're in the market for a standout trade show display? At Image 360 South Elgin, they've got you covered. As your full-service custom sign and graphics partner, they deliver bold solutions and exceptional support. From outdoor signage to eye-catching store signs, indoor graphics to comprehensive branding solutions, they have the experience to elevate your brand's presence. Trust Image 360 to create a long-term partnership that gives your brand 360 degrees of exposure. Visit them at 506 Sundown Road in South Elgin. Image 360 South Elgin. Bold solutions, exceptional support.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are